movie starts with two Russian mobs running away from an American gangster. The Russian mobsters were eventually caught by their pursuers, who immediately seized the suitcase they were carrying. But still, the American gangsters couldn't find the keys to the briefcase. They interrogated one of the two Russian mafias, Yuri, who was the son of a mob leader. As the heir to the mafia, Yuri certainly has a reputation he must maintain. When his partner was stabbed before him, he refused to tell his enemy about the keys to the suitcase. The gangsters managed to find the key after searching Yuri's suit. Without them noticing, Yuri just traded the suitcase of their target for one fake bomb. So, when one of the gangsters opened the fake suitcase, it made the bomb inside automatically activate, leaving the man injured. Enraged for having been tricked, the American gangster took Yuri to their base, where he was tortured to death. But the head of the gangster, Baron, had an idea of how he could make Yuri open his mouth. He asked Yuri nicely where their suitcase was, and if Yuri tells them, Baron promises to let him live. Since he couldn't stand the torture, Yuri decided to tell them what they wanted. He said the briefcase was at one of the mob's headquarters. Unfortunately, Baron had no intention of letting him go. When Baron said he was going to keep Yuri alive, he meant he would keep Yuri alive for today. When tomorrow comes, he will die. The following day, Yuri's friend's body was dumped in the street. James, one of the detectives who investigated his death, assumed they were facing a street robbery, nothing special. But James' boss, Detective Blake, tended to disagree. He believed the body was a murder victim. Blake asked for advice from a senior detective, Ed, but Ed only replied that Blake didn't need his advice because Blake was better than him at investigating cases. The scene then shows Marcus, an ex-Special Forces man. But now he was just an unemployed man living with his sister, Raina. He loved his sister so much, but Raina herself was ashamed to have a brother like Marcus. He has been unemployed for a long time. So far, he has only stayed at home, worsening their financial situation daily. Marcus was aware of that, but he asked her sister to calm down. He said he had found someone who wanted to hire him. The guy asked Marcus to meet him that day. Soon, Marcus went to see his future employer, who turned out to be Baron. And as expected, the gangster boss wanted Marcus to steal the briefcase from the Russian mafia headquarters. At first, Marcus hesitated to accept the job because he knew very well the security at the mob's headquarters was very strict. It would be hard for him to infiltrate a place like that alone. However, he changed his mind immediately after Baron promised a reward of $2 million. Before carrying out the mission, Marcus came to the house of his hacker friend, Augie, to ask for help stealing the briefcase. He convinced Augie that he only needed to be led to infiltrate the mob's headquarters safely. If he manages to get the case, he promises to give Augie a reward of $500,000. Hearing that amount, Augie agreed to help. Thus, Marcus began his mission by sneaking into the headquarters of the mob. And thanks to Augie's help, he could ambush the guards there, allowing him to find the suitcase without any significant problems. With the case in his hands, Marcus called Baron to report his success. Hence, Baron asked him to go to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. That's where they'll meet, and Marcus will give him the case. When Marcus arrived at the appointment, he encountered Detective Ed instead of Baron. The detective then told Marcus to open the car's trunk, and much to Marcus' shock, he found someone dying in it. He doesn't know who the man in the trunk is, and it turns out to be Yuri. Detective Ed had been conspiring with Baron to frame Marcus. Yuri was the son of the Russian mafia leader, and anyone who dared to harm him was bound to be hunted. After learning that Ed shot Yuri, he called Baron to report his success. But Marcus did not stand still. He punched Ed in the face before he ran off with the briefcase. Unfortunately, Detective Blake arrived at this exact moment and saw that Marcus had attacked Ed. He went after Marcus and pointed his gun at him. Marcus tried to explain everything to Blake, that he was framed by Detective Ed and didn't kill the man in the trunk. But Blake, who had been friends with Ed for a long time, did not trust Marcus. Then Marcus had no choice but to attack Blake to escape that place. The situation was awful for Marcus. He was framed, and Baron ordered his right-hand man, Boca, to kidnap Raina and hold her at their base. He also ordered Detective Ed to meet Yuri's father, Arkady, to inform him of Yuri's death at Marcus' hands. Detective Ed even told Arkady that Marcus had secretly entered one of the Russian mafia bases. The news filled Arkady with rage. He then ordered his men to send assassins to capture Marcus alive, promising anyone bringing Marcus in front of him would be rewarded with $2 million. Meanwhile, Marcus had now realized that he was framed. He contacted Baron and charged him with explaining why he betrayed him. But Baron calmly said that he had planned to make Marcus a scapegoat from the beginning because he realized his gang was still not strong enough to deal directly with the Russian mafia. He also told Marcus that he had taken Raina. So, if Marcus wanted her alive, he had to hand the suitcase over to Baron. Realizing he couldn't solve this by himself, Marcus went to Augie again for the help. Augie instead told him that there were many assassins now coming after him. Arkady has made it difficult for those assassins to catch Marcus. There's nothing Augie can do to help Marcus in this terrible situation. Then he advised Marcus to see their other friend, Doc. Augie believed Doc could help Marcus, considering he was more experienced handling cases like this. After that, Marcus went to Doc's house. He told Doc everything that had been going on. Doc agreed to help him, and they started making plans. Afterward, Marcus went outside to call Detective Blake and asked him to meet at 8 o'clock in the morning. Blake agreed to the offer, though he wouldn't come alone to meet a killer like Marcus. So, he asked Detective Ed and his men to go with him. The following day, Marcus went to the location alone, while Doc observed the situation from his house using cameras. Soon, Blake and the others arrived, but Marcus asked Ed to wait in the car, and Ed was the only one he asked to wait. Meanwhile, Marcus took them to the side of Doc's house, where he then gave them the briefcase. He told them how important the suitcase was. Baron's gang leader was after it, and he even held Marcus' sister hostage to get it. For that reason, Marcus also warned the police to be careful with Detective Ed because he feared Ed would take the briefcase away from them. But one of the cops tried to calm Marcus down, saying that even if Ed betrayed them, there was nothing he could do. Ed was old and powerless. They could easily subdue him. Shortly after, Blake sent 2 of his men, Officers John and Ellen, to take the briefcase to the police station. At the same time, he and Detective James would interrogate Marcus further. Marcus trusted Blake and that the police will help him. He did not even care if the cops caught him as long as they could save Raina. While they were talking, suddenly, someone came in and tried to shoot them. One of Arcadie's assassins arrived, and he asked Marcus to surrender. Marcus pretended to give up because his opponent had a weapon while he didn't. He raised his hand while letting the assassin approach him. And when the killer was within range, Marcus quickly grabbed his rifle and attacked him. Shortly after he beat the assassin, his enemy was exposed to death. Meanwhile, Detective Ed offered to take Officer John and Ellen to the station, and the 2 officers agreed to let Ed drive. Suddenly, Ed pulled aside the car right in front of Boca, who had been waiting for them. Without Ed noticing, another traitor was beside himself in the police force, and that traitor is Officer Ellen sitting in the back seat. When Ed pulled over, Ellen shot John in the back, much to Ed's surprise. Then she pointed her gun at Ed and hit him right in the chest. Baron no longer needs that old cop and has ordered Ellen to finish him off. Thus, with the completion of her mission, she then took the suitcase away with Boca. On Marcus' side, it turns out the hitman after him is still coming, and the assassin is a woman. She acted more intelligent than the previous assassin by holding Doc hostage. Then, while sticking a knife to Doc's neck, she demanded Marcus give up on her. Marcus had no other choice. He didn't want Doc to get hurt, so he turned himself into her. But when the assassin was just about to tie Marcus up, suddenly, a grenade landed near their feet, and the blast almost killed them. 2 other assassins throw the grenade and want Marcus to give up. But this time, Doc was already running into his house so Marcus could freely face the 3 assassins. And thanks to Doc's analysis, Marcus beat 3 of his opponents one by one. After killing the 3 assassins, Marcus, Blake, and James decided to go after the first group at the police station. But on the way there, they found Ed dying on the side of the road, and then they pulled the car aside to check on him. Ed realized that his life wouldn't be long, so he apologized to Blake for betraying him and the police. He also told Marcus where he could find Raina before giving him evidence of Baron's crimes. While at gang headquarters, Ellen had handed the briefcase to Baron and asked for a reward for her services. But instead of giving her the compensation she deserved, Baron preferred to kill her. Moments later, Marcus finally arrived at the location where Raina was held captive. That place was full of guards, but they were not a big deal for Marcus. He managed to reunite with Raina after brutally beating up the guards. But just as they were about to leave the place, Boca came with one of his men. Marcus asked Raina to leave first while he was going to fight those 2 enemies. The fight went more challenging for him this time because his 2 opponents were pretty tough, and they attacked simultaneously. But still, he could subdue them in the end. Later that night, Blake came to see Baron arrest him. And Baron could not avoid the accusations leveled against him because Blake had a lot of evidence pointing to the crimes Baron had committed. He let Blake arrest him without a fight. Meanwhile, Marcus had arrived home after defeating Boca. He came home only to tell Raina he was leaving again. He had to finish his business with Arcadie. Otherwise, the mob boss will continue to send assassins to arrest him. After that, Marcus went to see Arcadie at his house. And as soon as they met, Marcus revealed to him that his son's killer was not him but Baron's gang. As proof, he gave a voice recording between Baron and Detective Ed, making Arcadie could not help but trust him. And as a man of principle, Arcadie will reward Marcus with the $2 million he promised. Because, at any rate, Marcus had brought himself before him, and he had promised to reward anyone who could get Marcus before him. But he still won't forget Baron's crimes. He promised Marcus he would keep hunting Baron no matter if he was in jail. After that, Marcus took the $2 million and remembered his promise to his friends who helped him. He gave Doc and Augie $500,000 each, while the rest he used to open a restaurant. The last scene shows the restaurant that had opened, and Marcus decided to manage it with Raina. The moral that can be learned from this movie is to fight for justice. Even in difficult circumstances, if we fight for something that is right, there will always be a way to deal with it.